Act 1 of The Young Idea, a comedy in 3 acts by Noel Coward. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Cast of Characters: George Brent,
Read by Drew Gulino.
Gerda, his child;
Read by Amanda Mill.
Sholto, his child;
Read by Bucksaw.
Jennifer, his first wife, divorced;
Read by Jennifer Pratt.
Cicely, his second wife;
Read by Claire Butler.
Priscilla Hartleberry;
Read by Jennifer Pratt.
Claude Eccles;
Read by Jeff Butterfield.
Julia Cragworthy;
Read by Amby Sweet 13.
Eustace Dabbit;
Read by Matthew Reese.
Sybil Blythe;
Read by Jody LaBelle.
Rodney Masters;
Read by Mike Manolakis.
Huddle, butler;
Read by Larry Wilson.
Hiram J. Walken;
Read by Jeff Butterfield.
Maria, servant at the villa;
Read by April 6090.
Stage directions read by Todd. Scenes: Act 1, Hall of George Brent's house in England. Act 2, the same, a week later. Act 3, Jennifer Brent's villa in Italy, 3 weeks later. The Young Idea. Act 1. Scene: The scene is the hall of George Brent's house in the hunting country. It is well furnished and comfortable. There is a door on the right leading to the drawing room, a staircase at the back with a turn in it. A little to the left of this there is an opening into a smaller hall and the front door. Further down left is a curtained window, and on the extreme left a door leading to dining room. When the curtain rises, the stage is empty. Huddle enters through hall door, and stands aside to admit Roddy Masters.
Will you come into the drawing room, sir?
No, I'll wait here.
Crosses to table right.
Very good, sir.
He turns. Roddy, carelessly.
Mrs. Brent is in?
Right center.
Yes, sir. I will tell her you're here.
Exit Huddle. Roddy crosses down to window and looks out. Enter Cicely.
Hello, Roddy.
Crosses to center. Roddy, right center, turning quickly, in eager tones.
Cicely!
Well?
Haven't you forgiven me for last night?
Oh, don't be silly.
You were awfully cross.
Well, it was the sort of obviousness that I particularly dislike.
Roddy, aggrieved.
I don't see why. We were all playing the beastly game, the whole house party. Claude Eccles hid with Priscilla heaps of times.
Cicely, right center.
That's not the point. Anyhow, she's a silly little fool to let him.
Moves to left. Roddy crosses left center, sullenly.
I'm sure you exaggerate. No one really notices that sort of thing.
Cicely, by fender, suddenly going close to him.
Roddy, I'm a little frightened, uncomfortable. I don't know why. It may be because I've stayed in all day. I wish I'd hunted after all.
What are you frightened of?
Cicely, looking away.
I don't know.
Roddy, left center, suddenly taking her in his arms.
Silly old thing.
Cicely, left, breaking away.
Roddy, you mustn't. George is in the house. Don't you understand he's in the house?
Roddy, up to center, rather nonplussed.
I thought he was hunting.
Well, he isn't. He's in the drawing room, and he might come out at any minute.
It doesn't matter if he does.
It matters much more than you think. We've been together much too openly lately, and he's no fool.
Roddy sits on settee.
I wish I could make you understand.
My dear old girl, you mustn't get nervy. George would never suspect anything in 1,000 years.
Cicely, with sarcasm.
It might afford slight food for suspicion if he came down and found me clasped tightly in your arms. You're never to do it again, not in the house. It's too dangerous.
I hardly get you to myself at all.
Now that's not fair of you, Roddy. You know I do my best, but we must not be blatant. You will not understand. If George did by any chance discover everything, well, he'd do something dreadful. Shoot himself or divorce me or... Anyhow, there'd be a terrible scandal.
Crosses right. Roddy rises. Down center.
I think you're overrating George's character. He's not nearly strong-minded enough to do anything so dashing as divorce or shooting.
I do wish you wouldn't despise my husband so, Roddy. It isn't good form.
Roddy crosses right center.
Damn good form, when it's a question of being in love.
With someone else's wife, I see your point.
Look here, Cicely, Why aren't you a little nicer to me?
Cecily drops back.
I'm perfectly nice, and the nicest part of me is not letting you run down George. I have some sense of duty left.
You women are extraordinary creatures. I wonder if you realize what a grand passion means.
Yes, it means wanting a thing very badly until you've got it.
And after you've got it, always, forever, you sneer at my love for you and pretend it won't last. But you know in your heart that it's the truest thing that's ever been.
Cecily, softly.
Is it, Roddy? Is it really?
My God, just let me prove it.
Roddy takes her in his arms before she has time to resist, and kisses her passionately. As she breaks free from him, George Brent appears at drawing-room door. Cecily crosses to table right.
Hello, Roddy. Why aren't you hunting today?
Crosses to left center. Roddy up to center, a little flustered.
Oh, I don't know. Why aren't you?
I'm waiting in to welcome my 2 children. I suppose you're staying on to tea.
Oh, no, thanks. I just dropped in on my way to Dalsham. I'm going to see the new mare Rawlings has there.
Was that the one he was riding on Monday?
Roddy, up right center.
I don't know. I wasn't out. Anyhow, he's willing to sell, and I'm going to have first refusal.
Will you drive me over with you? I want a little air.
Slight movement upstage.
Of course I will. Only,
Cecily to table. Nervously.
I haven't been out all day. A drive would buck me up.
I rather wanted you to stay in this afternoon, Cicely.
Cecily crosses to George, left center.
I know, but I can't help it. You can make them both feel at home just as well without me.
Roddy drops right.
They'll think it rather odd.
Goes left.
You ought to stay.
Well, I can't. I simply can't.
Crosses to right, up.
I have a headache. Will you bring me back in time for tea, Roddy?
yes.
There, George. I'll be back in time for tea.
I'll go and start up the car.
Exit, whistling.
If it's as necessary as all that, of course there is no more to be said.
Cecily is about to follow Roddy.
I want to speak to you for a moment before you go, Cecily.
Cecily stops.
What is it?
Crosses down left center.
I don't wish this affair of yours with Roddy to become public property. You'd better be careful.
Cecily, astounded.
George, what do you mean?
George to Cecily, quite quietly.
This is what I mean. You think I'm a weak-minded ass, don't you? Sublimely unconscious of what goes on under my nose. You and Roddy both think that. You and Charlie Templeton thought it also, and Mark Hunter, and Douglas Green. You're awfully silly sometimes, Cecily.
Cecily, horrified.
George, what are you going to do?
I'm not going to do anything, providing you don't make a scandal. This is just a warning.
But
Now don't be tiresome, Cecily. I don't feel in the mood for a scene.
Look here, George.
Movement to George.
You see, we just care for each other, that's all. I'm sorry if I hurt you.
Rubbish. You haven't hurt me a bit.
Cecily starts back.
You mean because you don't love me anymore?
Exactly.
Then you don't?
Of course not. Why should I? You don't love me. Did you expect me to go on adoring you while you carried on various affairs with the whole county? I think it's simply maddening of you to underrate my intelligence like that. It's one thing Jennifer never did.
How dare you talk to me of Jennifer?
Why not? You kiss young men in my hall.
Cecily, furious.
To have her children here is bad enough, but for you to hold her up to me as an example?
George, left.
I never held her up as an example. She was much too irritating to be good for anyone. Dear Jennifer.
Dear Jennifer, indeed. You didn't say dear Jennifer when you were married to her.
Turns to center.
Yes, I did. Quite a number of times. But it didn't have the slightest effect. Dear Jennifer.
Cecily, movement down to George.
I don't attempt to understand you, George. Are you trying to insult me? To drive me to my lover's arms?
I failed to see the point of my driving you, dear, when you trot there so nicely by yourself.
Cecily, left center.
I'm going to tell you exactly what I think of you. You're not deceiving me a bit, you know. All this easy banter is only to cover your weakness, your lack of moral courage. You say you know of my affair with Roddy, and yet you won't take any decisive step. You're afraid. Afraid, and I despise you for it.
Turns away up the stairs.
It depends on what you mean by decisive. If you expect me to hit Roddy over the head with a mallet, I certainly shan't. I like him too much. Of course, apart from women and horses, he's a half-wit, but still, he amuses me.
That's right. Facetiousness and pretending not to care will eventually win me back to you. Is that the idea? What have you been reading, George?
I'm about to disillusion you, Cecily.
Cecily sits on arm of settee.
You think I am too weak-minded to be firm about anything. True, I'm not firm over many stupid little things that other men would make a fuss about, merely because I don't consider that the end would altogether justify the means. You also feel that I love you still, and desire to win you back to me by pretending not to care. Isn't that how you put it? You're all wrong, absolutely wrong. I don't love you any more, and I should loathe to win you back to me. I can imagine nothing more uncomfortable. I'm quite content to jog along here with you, providing you behave yourself, but if you do anything blatant and get talked about, there will be trouble. Bad trouble. Now go for your drive and be back in time for tea.
Enter Huddle, center.
Mr. Masters is in the car, madam, waiting.
Tell him that I have decided not to go at all.
And that we shall expect him back to tea.
Very good, sir.
Exit center. Cecily, after a pause, crosses to center.
Thank you for being so frank with me, George. It's nice to know just where one stands. Your rudeness has only made me despise you a little more. Please don't expect me to be nice to your children when they arrive. I consider it an insult to me for you to have asked them here at all.
George, left center.
I certainly expect you to be nice to them. I only hope they'll be nice to you. You're sure to be a novelty to them, at any rate. They've spent all their lives on the continent among a very haphazard set. It will be interesting for them to come to an English hunting county, where immorality is conducted by rules and regulations.
Anyhow, I'm glad we shall have a full house for the next few weeks. There will be more opportunities for me to avoid them.
Moves right.
If you continue in your present sunny mood, dear, I should think they'd be glad as well.
There is the noise of a motor outside, and then the loud pealing of the bell.
Here they are, here they are.
Goes up center. Cecily, going upstairs.
I may come down before dinner, and I may not.
Crosses toward stairs. George, jovially.
Well, it doesn't matter. Do exactly what you feel like.
George, I think you're insufferable.
Exit, angrily. There is a moment's pause. Enter Huddle. Huddle, announcing.
Miss Gerda and Mr. Sholto, sir.
Stands aside while they enter, and then withdraws. Both Gerda and Sholto are beautifully dressed. They come forward together, center. Gerda, center, softly, and she hopes appealingly.
Please, are you our daddy?
Sholto, center, with a pronounced break in his voice.
Father!
Sholto nudges Gerda, who runs forward and flings her arms around George's neck. Sholto wrings his hand in a manly fashion. George is entirely dumbfounded. Gerda, up center.
Oh, Dad! Daddy! Daddy, we're so happy! Happy! Mother sends you her love, Daddy!
Moves left. Sholto crosses left center.
Oh, Father, you can never guess how we have longed for this moment. We've...
Don't break down, big brother.
George, left center, placing a hand on each of their heads.
Little girl, Sonny, may I call you Sonny?
Gerda, left, ecstatically.
Sholto, he's got us!
Laughing.
I knew he would. You owe me 20 francs.
Damn, I wanted to go on much longer. I've got that long speech we made up at Boulogne.
Down to right.
Never mind. Say it now.
Sholto crosses to center.
No, I'll wait until we meet our stepmother. Isn't it amusing, having a stepmother and a real mother at the same time?
Where is she?
Upstairs, having a headache.
Was that photograph you sent like her? Mother was angry when it came, wasn't she, Gerda?
Absolutely livid.
They both shriek with laughter.
She wanted to tear it up, but we stopped her. We made her keep it on her writing desk.
Now tell us, were you glad to get Mother's letter? Were you looking forward to welcoming your long-lost darlings? I wanted to come in with a dog, like Peg o' my heart, but we couldn't find one.
You know, you're both awfully like I thought you'd be.
Are we?
We weren't quite sure about you. We guessed you had a sense of humor, but we thought it would probably be submerged by now, that you'd be more hunty and sporty. You do hunt, don't you?
Sometimes 4 and 5 days a week.
What do you hunt?
Sholto, center.
Don't be silly, Gerda. You know perfectly well they hunt foxes and stags and rabbits and things. Oh, by the way, we've got a letter for you from Mother. Give it to him, Gerda.
I haven't got it. You have.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have. I gave it back to you in the car.
You didn't.
Gerda crosses to Sholto.
I did.
Plunges her hand into his side pocket and produces letter.
There.
I wonder if you'd both keep quiet for a moment. Take a look around.
Sits in settee and commences to read letter. Sholto and Gerda wander round the hall, examining things. Sholto nudges Gerda, who looks towards George. She comes to back of settee, left center. Gerda, conversationally.
Mother was looking awfully pretty when we left. She does her hair so nicely now.
George, immersed in letter.
Humph.
Sholto, center.
And she's got rather sunburnt. You know, a nice berry color. She does most of her writing outdoors.
Sholto looks questioningly at Gerda, who nods emphatically. Then he runs out into the smaller hall, and returns in a moment with a large cardboard package. Goes to back of settee, left center.
The climate is so lovely in Alassio, all balmy with orange groves. Mother looks perfectly adorable in an orange grove.
Does she indeed?
Sholto, back of settee, left.
Yes, she does. Perhaps you'd like to see this?
Takes large photograph from packet and gives it to George.
Thank you.
Gerda, looking over his shoulder.
That's Mother, and that's us in the distance, and those are the oranges.
George, dryly.
How pretty.
Yes, isn't it? I always think this is a better portrait.
Takes another photograph and hands it to George, who winces slightly, as it is apparently a painfully good likeness.
By Jove!
Stares at it. Sholto and Gerda nudge one another and smile.
That old seat there is where Mother wrote most of Secret Lovers. She used to wear a funny little scarlet overall thing, and Maria used to bring her lunch out to her.
It's lovely and cool in the shade of those cypresses.
Takes another photograph from packet.
Personally, I always like this one best. It's so...
George rises hurriedly, dropping the 2 photographs onto the floor. He seems a little distrait.
I don't want to see any more now, thanks. We must all go and wash for tea.
Crosses upright. Sholto, picking up photographs.
Well, there's no need to trample Mother underfoot in your excitement.
Round settee, picks up photos, and puts them on settee. Gerda crosses right center.
I don't want to go and wash yet. I want to stay here and talk. You know, you'll have to tell us lots of things if we are to be a success with everybody.
If you behave like the modest, unassuming young things you are, you couldn't fail to be a success anywhere.
Sholto crosses to George.
It's all very fine for you to jeer at us, Father, but if you don't warn us about things, we're bound to make mistakes.
There's nothing very much to warn you about, except...
Well?
Movement to right.
Well, if you'll forgive me mentioning it, don't assert yourself quite so much. Be more retiring.
Sholto, right.
Of course. Violet won't be in it with us.
I'm afraid you won't have much in common with the others, so you mustn't mind feeling a bit out of it. You see, conversation in this part of the world is rather apt to run in grooves.
Gerda, right center.
That will be good practice. We'll see how long we can talk in one groove.
I think the quieter you keep the better. Anyhow, at first. Do you play any games?
Only poker.
George, apprehensively.
Do you play it well?
Gerda and Sholto together.
Very well.
I might have known it.
All laugh.
We also play bridge, just a teeny bit.
Well, don't, while you're here.
Very well, Father.
And for my sake, will you both try to refrain from doing anything utterly damnable?
Gerda, wistfully.
Of course, Daddy.
Crosses to George.
We'll do our best. We wouldn't wound our dear, kind Daddy for anything in the world, would we, Sholto?
No, little sister. We will work and slave for him.
All I ask is that you behave yourselves moderately well and try not to grate on every one.
I think we're going to be very happy here.
Crosses left. Gerda, right center.
Did stepmother Cicely like the idea of our coming?
George, right, going down.
Well, you see...
Or did she hate it?
Well, you see...
She hated it. What did I tell you, Sholto?
We shall have to be wistful with her, that's all, and make her love us. You can have a heart-to-heart talk with her, dear, and say how unhappy we are at home, and will she be a second mother to us?
No, you'd better talk to her. Being the opposite sex, it will probably appeal to her more.
Well, if you take my advice, you won't go on that line at all. Cicely would hate to be even a first mother to anyone, let alone a second.
Do you think we shall like her?
I'm sure you will.
He's lying.
George, movement to Gerda.
Moments have cropped up during our comparatively short reunion, Gerda, when only the frailty of your sex has prevented me from striking you.
Well, after all, it's only natural that she wouldn't want us. She probably thinks we're going to be odious. Won't she be surprised when she sees us?
That remains to be proved.
Anyhow, you leave her to us. We'll make her yearn for our company every moment of the day. Is the house full of people?
Yes, they'll be back from hunting pretty soon.
There is the noise of a motor outside.
You'd better come and clean yourselves now. Here they are.
All turn up to center.
Do you always hunt in motor cars in England?
All going toward stairs. George, as they go upstairs.
No, my uninitiated lunatic. They're out with the Craigmore today.
Well, I only asked.
They are just at the top of the stairs when Gerda stops.
Oh, I've left my bag. Get it for me, Sholto. There's a lamb.
Winks heavily, unperceived by George.
All right.
Runs back downstairs. George and Gerda go off, talking. Sholto quickly takes the two largest photographs from the packet, stands them up on the mantelpiece, shoves packet under chair, then takes Gerda's bag and exits upstairs, two at a time. Huddle throws open door center. Enter Priscilla Hartleberry and Sybil Blythe, followed by Claude Eccles. All three are in hunting kit. Huddle goes off left.
Are you going to change now or have tea first?
Oh, tea. I couldn't drag myself up those stairs without it.
Lapsing into baby talk.
I's dreadfully tired.
Sits settee left.
Damned good day, though. Taken all round.
Crosses right. Sybil crosses top of stage toward stairs.
I should have liked it better if we hadn't been taken all round. I'm worn out.
Looking at watch.
It's late, too.
Huddle enters left with teapot and milk jug. Puts them on table left. Exits.
Do you want any, Sybil?
Not now. I'm too muddy to enjoy it. I'll be down soon.
Exit upstairs. Claude crosses to table, up right center.
I shall have a whiskey and soda.
Helps himself. Turns down.
I must drink tea all by my little self, then.
Pours out a cup and helps herself to a sandwich. Claude, on his way down center, catches sight of photographs on mantelpiece.
Hello, who's this?
Goes left to mantelpiece. Priscilla, vacantly.
Who's what?
These photos. Some friend of Cicely's, I suppose.
Picks up photos, shows them to Priscilla.
Who can it be now? It isn't Gracie Fancourt. I know her by sight. I've never noticed it before, have you?
No.
Oh, well, we'll ask Cecily when she comes down.
Claude replaces photographs.
Oh, dear. How I adore nice hot tea. I wonder if they drink it much in Poona.
Claude sits on club fender.
I wish you weren't going to Poona at all.
But think what poor Morris would say if I didn't. He's waiting out there, counting the weeks until I come. Poor lonely darling. Still, I shall hate leaving England, and everybody.
Casts an arch look at Claude, who doesn't notice, as he is gazing gloomily into the fire.
I wonder if you will. Really.
Priscilla, reproachfully, taking another sandwich.
You know I will. Ickle Prissy'll feel very homesick out there among nasty, creepy, crawly insects and snakes and things.
Claude, with some bitterness.
You'll have Maurice.
Only in the evenings. He'll be out all day.
Perhaps you'll have time, then, to write to me occasionally?
Would you like me to very much?
Yes.
Crosses to her.
More than anything else in the world.
Goes and sits by Priscilla on settee. Priscilla, overcome.
Oh, Claude.
Takes another sandwich.
When you're gone, I don't quite know what I shall do. We've been together a lot lately, haven't we?
Do you think people have noticed?
Oh, no, I shouldn't be such a cad as to get you talked about.
Priscilla, with obvious relief.
I know you wouldn't, Claude. Ickle Pussy has a very soft corner in her heart for you.
You'll dance with me as much as you can at the hunt ball next week, won't you? It'll be your last night down here.
Of course I will. I love dancing with you. Our steps go so well together.
If only you weren't tied down, our steps might have gone together through life.
Priscilla, with gentle reproach.
You mustn't talk to me like that, else I'll be cross with you.
I simply must say what I really feel, for once. I can't keep it back,
Priscilla, hurriedly.
Claude, think of Maurice.
Quickly takes another sandwich, presumably to calm herself. Enter Julia Cragworthy, followed by Eustace. Julia is in riding habit. Eustace is not.
If you hadn't insisted on staying behind to jaw to Lady Churchingston, Eustace, we should have been saved the hideous boredom of having to drive with the Crossleys.
Moves to left center. Eustace, right center.
I had to stop, because she was a great friend of my aunt's. Also, she is twice removed from the Cheshire Churchingtons.
She'll be removed from Leicestershire soon, if she rides her horses to death like that. Everyone was talking about it. Tea, for the love of heaven.
Gets tea from table left.
Have the young prodigals arrived yet?
Which young prodigals?
George's children. They're due today.
So they are. I'd forgotten all about them. I expect Cicely's in a flaming temper. Poor Cicely. She has no repose in a crisis.
Why should it be a crisis?
It must be a crisis to any second wife to have the first wife's offspring suddenly foisted upon her. No thanks, Claude.
Claude has worked up and round to back of settee with cakes, which he offers to Julia.
Plain bread and butter.
Eustace, center.
I think it was in doubtful taste for Jennifer to send them.
You knew her, didn't you?
Oh, yes, years ago.
What was she like?
Very tiresome indeed. She and George used to jar on one another terribly. I shall never forget. By Jove!
Suddenly catches sight of photographs, crosses to fireplace.
What is it?
Julia moves to back of settee, left. Eustace, examining them closely.
This is Jennifer. Very like she used to be, very like. A bit passé, of course, since I saw her. Been knocking about too much. Damn fool ever to have left George.
Did she leave him? I thought it was the other way round.
As a matter of fact, they arranged it between them. Said they were too temperamental or some such rubbish.
Takes cup of tea and sits on club fender.
I know the sort of thing. I only hope history won't repeat itself.
What do you mean, Mrs. Cragsworthy?
Well, I'm a plain woman, and I generally have the moral courage to speak out.
You mean Cicely and...
Julia, top of settee, left center.
Roddy, precisely.
But that wouldn't be history repeating itself exactly, would it? I mean, Jennifer didn't really care for anyone else. I mean...
Re-enter Cecily, downstairs.
So sorry, all of you. I've had a beastly headache all the afternoon. Had a good day, Julia?
Top hole. Collins was out on that knock-kneed old chestnut. He told me all about the Hinton girls and Roger Gray. I've never laughed so much in my life.
Nora Brand was out too, and Nicky and Boy Fenton. I saw them all glaring at one another.
Some people are amazing, aren't they?
She sees photographs.
Who put those there?
Left center.
I don't know. Didn't you?
Cecily, looking at them hard.
But, why, it's Jennifer. Really,
Crosses to mantelpiece and back to center.
Yes, it is Jennifer. Hasn't changed much, considering. I remember her. Let me see now.
Cecily, center.
Sometimes George goes a little too far. I must ask him to take them down. They crowd up the mantelpiece so...
Where are the two children, Cicely? Do they fall below or come up to your expectations?
I haven't seen them yet. My head was too bad for me to come down when they arrived.
Sits at table, right.
George has carried them off somewhere. To be perfectly frank, I'm rather dreading them.
One instinctively mistrusts the idea of young people bred on the continent. Instinctively. I don't wish to depress you, Cicely, but they're certain to be precocious.
How old are they?
The boy's 21 and the girl's 18.
Where were they at school?
I don't know. They've been mostly educated at home, I think.
I thought as much. They'll know all the things they ought not to know.
Perhaps you'd like to take them in hand, Julia dear. I feel sure you could be sufficiently firm.
I can bear anything except artificiality, as long as they are natural, and don't try to push themselves forward and monopolize the conversation.
Here they are.
Up behind settee, left. Re-enter George downstairs, followed by Gerda and Sholto. George, coming down right to Cecily.
Cicely, this is Gerda and Sholto.
Gerda and Sholto go to center and walk down. Cecily rises.
How do you do?
Gerda crosses to Cecily, firmly kissing her on both cheeks.
Please, are you our new mummy?
Falls back. Sholto crosses to Cecily with simple manliness.
We have waited a long time for this moment.
Takes her hand. Cecily, by table right, staggered.
Oh, have you?
Sholto, right center.
Yes, indeed we have. Gerda said to me in the train, didn't you, Gerda?
Gerda, center.
I did.
Sholto, she said, aren't you simply pining to see our stepmother, Cicely? Yes, Gerda, I said. Didn't I, Gerda?
You did.
Yes, Gerda. She looked so charming in the picture Father sent.
Cecily, looking at George.
What picture?
George, right, airily.
I just sent Jennifer one of your new ones. I thought you wouldn't mind.
You sent Jennifer one of my new photographs?
Yes.
Cecily, coldly.
Why?
George, feebly.
Because I thought she'd like it?
Gerda, conciliatively.
She did too, didn't she, Sholto?
Sholto, with slightly overdone enthusiasm.
She adored it!
Cecily, movement, angrily to George.
I failed to see that there was the slightest necessity. Well, never mind now. Julia, these are George's children. Mrs. Cragworthy, Mrs. Hartlebury, Eustace Dabbit, and Claude Eccles.
How do you
do?
I'm an old friend of your mother's.
Crosses to left center, shakes hands. Sholto, politely.
Are you?
Gerda moves left.
Yes, don't you remember, Sholto, Mother said, the very last thing before we started. Give my very best love to dear old Claude Eccles. He's certain to be there.
My name is Dabbit.
Back to Fender.
Of course, how stupid of me. I mean Dabbit.
It's no use, Gerda. You floundered badly.
To Eustace.
I'm so sorry. My sister was only trying to be pleasant.
I remember your mother. Let me see, now. We were staying with Lady Dutton. Or was it the Fenworths? The Shropshire Fenworths, you know, not the Leicester ones.
Sholto, relieved.
Oh, I am glad it wasn't the Leicester ones. I've heard such fearful things about them.
Indeed, my aunt is a Leicester Fenworth.
Forgive my brother. He was only trying to be funny.
Sholto, holding Gerda's hand, both crossed to Cecily.
We are frightfully excited, you know. It's the first time we've been in England, anyhow, since we were tiny. So don't be cross if we're stupid about things. You see, living on the continent, as we have...
Gerda interrupting.
It's all naturally new and thrilling to us here. You can't imagine how funny it is, everything being gray instead of brightly colored, and everyone talking in English and not waving their arms much, and...
Gerda, we're talking too much. Remember what Father said?
Gerda cheerfully.
Sorry, everybody.
Do you want any tea?
Crosses to left center, top of settee.
Yes, please.
I'll do it, Cecily. You sit still and rest that poor tired head of yours.
Is it still bad, dear?
Cecily, snappily.
Yes, it is.
It's a pity you didn't go for the drive with Roddy, after all. It might have done you good.
He suddenly sees photographs.
Hello! Why? Oh, Lord!
He bursts out laughing and looks at Sholto and Gerda, who laugh too. Everyone else looks surprised, except Cecily, who is furious.
You little beasts, go and take them down at once.
Sholto, going to mantelpiece left.
Of course. I always think photographs look untidy without frames.
Cecily, with a forced smile.
Give them to me. I'll tell Huddle to send them down to the village to be done.
Sits by table right. Sholto crosses to Cecily. Sits at table, handing them to her.
I think black would be nicer than anything else, don't you? Just plain and narrow.
Gerda, right center, looking over Cecily's shoulder.
Or perhaps brown wood.
Cecily, scrutinizing them with a smile.
So that's your mother? She's quite different from what I imagined. What a quaint dress. Is that typically Italian?
Gerda, right center.
No, only an overall. She always wears them during the day. So cool and comfy.
Crosses center. Cecily, still smiling.
Very pretty.
Sholto rises, goes to tea table left.
I think it's Mother that's pretty, not the overall.
Remind me about those, somebody.
Puts them on table.
Righto.
Was Bobby Armstrong out today?
Yes, I knew he would be. Beryl followed in a dog cart.
She's got no go in her, that girl. She borrowed the top of my thermos and never returned it. Shallow. Very shallow.
How she has the nerve to come to meets at all after what happened at the Cragmore ball beats me.
I knew she'd try to brazen it out.
Bobby behaved pretty well over the whole affair. Damn good value, Bobby.
Best stables in the Monday country.
He sold Frank Forbes a ripping good filly last winter. Never turned her head.
Enter Roddy by front door.
Hello, Roddy. You have been quick.
I didn't get to Dalsham after all. I've had some rather bad news.
Moves down to Cecily. Cecily, right center.
Bad news? What is it?
Roddy, center.
My brother out in Jamaica is dead. I've had a cable. I've been more or less expecting it. It means I shall have to go out there at once within the next fortnight.
Cecily gives a little cry.
Oh!
Controls herself.
How very tiresome for you, Roddy. I am so sorry.
George, left center, top of settee.
So am I, Roddy.
Will you have to stay out there?
Roddy, to left center.
Yes. You see, I'm his only living relative. I shall have to take over control of his plantation, at least for a few months until all his affairs are settled.
We shall miss you, Roddy, shan't we, Cecily?
Yes, of course we shall.
Won't you be here for the hunt ball after all?
I don't know. It all depends. It's next Tuesday, isn't it? I shouldn't think I'd be able to get away before then.
By the way, Roddy, let me introduce my son and daughter.
Sholto and Gerda get up and shake hands. Sholto, crossing to Roddy, sympathetically.
How do you do? Jolly rotten for you. You say he was your only brother.
Shakes his hand. Gerda shakes his hand.
You'll have to cheer up and try not to think about it.
It is such a beastly long journey.
I meant about him dying.
Sits down again.
So did I.
Crosses back of settee. Roddy, hurriedly.
Well, you see, I haven't set eyes on him for about 8 years.
Look here, I must go and write a note to your mother to thank her for you. You'd better both wait here.
Sholto and Gerda, wistfully.
Very well, Father.
Sholto chokes into his teacup. Gerda bangs him on the back. Everyone else goes on talking. Exit George, right.
Does anybody want to play bridge? Julia?
I will when I've changed.
Crosses toward stairs.
Eustace, I know you will. Roddy, do you feel like it?
Roddy, right center.
Yes, all right.
Julia, going upstairs.
I shan't be 5 minutes.
Exit. Cecily crosses left center. To Sholto and Gerda.
Do you want to play?
I think we'd better not.
You haven't such a thing as a Ludo board in the house?
Priscilla?
No, I'm going to write a long letter to Morris before dinner.
Rises and moves in front of settee toward stairs. Claude follows. They pause up center.
Come on, Eustace. Claude, you can cut in later if you like. I shan't play for long.
Thanks awfully.
Exeunt Cecily, Eustace, and Roddy, right. Gerda, conversationally.
Have you been hunting all day?
Yes.
Did you find anything?
Priscilla, giggling.
Oh dear, that's very funny. Oh dear.
It wasn't meant to be. I was only talking in intelligent interest.
Not intelligent, dear.
Now, don't be superior, Gerda. You really know just as little about it as I do.
To Claude.
You see, we want to pick up all we can about hunting, so that we can get all along all right in the groove.
The what?
The groove. The hunting groove. You don't talk about much else down here, do you? You see, we're used to people who talk about everything. Vice and art and food. And, of course, we don't want to be out of the swim.
So, will you tell us things?
I'm afraid I don't have time just now.
Enter Huddle to clear tea things.
You'll learn soon enough. Are you coming up now, Priscilla?
Starts to go upstairs. Priscilla, following him.
Yes. If I don't catch this mail, poor Morris will think his ickle pussy dreadfully neglectful, poor darling.
Exeunt Priscilla and Claude, talking.
They don't seem to want to talk to us very much, do they?
Oh, silly asses.
Gerda, to Huddle, still out to be pleasant.
What's your name?
Huddle, miss.
Have you been here long?
3 years, sir.
Do you like it?
Yes, thank you, miss.
Exit with tray. There was a slight pause. Gerda, furiously.
Sholto, I hate them. I hate them all, except Daddy. They're beasts. And that cat Cicely was trying to be horrible about Mother. They're all against us just because we're not narrow and horsey like them. I want to go back home now. I want Mother.
She sniffs.
Now, don't give way and be absurd. Remember, we have a mission in life. May the light of it guide you to a calmer state of mind. It's a very beautiful mission.
I'm quite calm, really. But if you ever inherit this house, you can live in it by yourself. It's perfectly beastly.
One thing cheers me up intensely.
What is it?
Sholto, complacently.
The look Cicely gave when Roddy What's-His-Name said he had to go away.
You mean that she's...
Sholto, smiling.
I think we're going to be very happy here.
Curtain. End of Act 1. Act 2 of The Young Idea, a comedy in 3 acts by Noel Coward. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 2. Scene the same as Act 1. Time, a week has elapsed. When curtain rises, Cecily, Julia, Sybil, Priscilla, and Gerda are seated about, having after-dinner coffee. They are all, with the exception of Gerda, shrieking with laughter. Their clothes are conventional, pinks and blues, not too well made. Gerda is in a chic and elaborately simple frock.
Dear, oh dear. It really was awfully funny, wasn't it?
I've never laughed so much in my life.
Enter Claude, George, Eustace, and Sholto from dining room.
What are you all laughing at?
Only the story of Bessie Clifton and Jack Monstron.
Sholto sits on club fender. Priscilla crosses to Claude, center. Eustace comes left center.
Most amusing, most amusing. I always said to Bessie that the only thing more expensive than hunting was virtue.
Goes up. Priscilla, center.
By the way, Cicely, is Roddy going away tomorrow for certain?
Cecily, seated down left.
Yes, I think so.
I've always liked Roddy, in spite of what people say about him and the Clifton girl. I'm sure it's not true.
I know it isn't.
Gerda, sweetly.
But still, he has rather the reputation of a Don Juan in the county. Hasn't he, stepmother Cicely?
George, moving left center.
We all have reputations and traditions in the county, Gerda. Some of us try to live up to them, and others hope to live them down. Roddy is one of the latter.
Anyhow, we shall miss him.
Priscilla is right center. Eustace goes to her and Claude. Eustace, center.
His uncle is one of the Monmouthshire masters, I think. Very old family.
Talks to Claude.
I should love to be going to Jamaica. Wouldn't you, stepmother Cicely?
Not particularly.
I wonder if you'll get much good riding out there. He'll be wretched if he doesn't.
Claude, center.
Wonderful seat on a horse, old Roddy.
That's the expression we were trying to think of, to tell Mother. Wonderful seat on a horse.
You're learning a lot, aren't you?
Sholto rises, crosses to settee.
Rather. A man in a red coat and a black velvet cap with a lot of dogs is called an MFH.
Not dogs, dear. Hounds.
Sorry, hounds.
I really don't see the point of your trying to master hunting technicalities. You're surely not intending to take it up seriously.
Why not? We're both young, and I'm sure we've got good seats.
Cecily, contemptuously, looking across to Julia.
You really are too absurd.
Gerda, reminiscently.
I ride a frightfully fiery donkey at home. Its name is Muriel.
Sholto, in hunting tones.
Damn good value, old Muriel. Never turns her head.
She can't, poor dear. She suffers from spavin.
Priscilla, center.
But that wouldn't have anything to do with it.
Believe me, the slightest thing upsets Muriel. She is neurotic.
Julia, heavily.
If you two kids took things a bit more seriously, you might learn something.
George comes down.
Let's push some of the things back and practice steps for tonight.
Claude comes down.
All right, go and get the records, will you, Claude? They're in the drawing room.
Why not dance in there? The floor's ever so better.
Won't it be rather cold?
Sybil, right center.
Oh, no. We shall soon get warm.
Goes upstage.
Come on, everybody. You've got to dance too tonight, Mr. Dabbit.
Eustace, upright center.
Only a waltz. I can't stand these foxtrot things.
You'll have to hurry up and learn.
Eustace moves towards drawing room door. Sybil, is Roddy coming here first, before the ball, Cecily?
Yes, I think he is. I really don't know.
Exit Sybil, George following, into drawing room. George, center.
I hope to goodness he brings his car. We shall never all squash into the Daimler.
Exit.
Oh, he's sure to.
Exeunt Eustace, Julia, into drawing room. Sholto, back of settee.
What time does the ball start?
Crosses to center. Priscilla, left center.
About 10, I think, but it won't be really jolly until after midnight.
Will it be really jolly then?
Oh, yes, rather.
Center.
Last year, Donald Hicks slid down the stairs on a tray and broke 10 empty champagne bottles. Damn good rag.
Sholto, back of settee, laughing.
It sounds delightful. Oh, I love subtle humor.
Don't be supercilious, dear. You know stepmother Cicely doesn't like it.
There's nothing in the least clever in deprecating people to whom you are not accustomed. Donald Hake is a normal, healthy, and amusing boy.
I'm sorry if I was supercilious, but it does sound silly to get drunk in public and make an abject fool of yourself.
I'm sure I hope that your own lives have been spotless enough to allow you to criticize others.
Gerda, hotly.
Sholto's never been drunk.
Hush, darling. That's not a crime. It's normal, healthy, and amusing.
Foxtrot heard off. Priscilla, up with Claude, center, intelligently.
Well, I suppose there are different ways of doing different things. Do come and dance, Claude. I want to learn that new crossover step. It's so much better than the 1, 2, 3 dip.
Righto. Are you three coming?
Exeunt Claude and Priscilla, talking. Cecily follows. As she passes end of settee, stops center. Sholto, to Cecily.
You do hate us being here, don't you?
Cecily, center.
I'm afraid I haven't given the matter enough thought. You amuse George, and, after all...
Shrugs.
Oh, after all, it is not easy at a moment's notice to become an adoring adopted mother. That is true.
I have never had the slightest intention of being your adopted mother.
Gerda, curiously.
Why do you loathe us so much? Is it because your husband's our father? Or because we laugh at things? Or because...
Cecily, center.
I don't see that there is any real necessity to discuss the subject any further, do you?
Going.
Of course we do. It may be unconventional to talk of anything really openly here, but...
I'm afraid you frequently confuse lack of convention with lack of breeding.
Oh!
Pause.
Oh!
Exit Cecily to drawing room. Sholto moves down. After a slight pause.
Oh, that's a nasty one.
Sits on settee. Gerda, on settee.
We were asking for it, dear. Still, we had to give her a chance to be nice. Wouldn't it have been awful if she'd got all impulsive and wept a little and said she wanted us all to be girls together? Thank heaven she really is an unpleasant woman. Now we'd better start in and get busy.
Sholto, on settee.
And the sooner the better. Do you think the crucial moment will occur tonight?
It's certain to. It's Roddy's last night in England. How far have they gone already, I wonder?
Which of the women here is most intimate with our gentle, loving stepmother? That's the first thing to find out.
Well, not Sybil, anyhow. She hasn't known her long enough.
Oh, there's Bounding Julia.
No, Bounding Julia is too outspoken and straight from the shoulder-ish to be really intimate with anyone.
Priscilla, then. She's the only one left. We'd better try her.
Rises, crosses to center. Pause.
Shall I become amorous?
No, you might go too far and spoil everything.
Sholto, center.
I don't think one could go too far with Priscilla. She has no distance.
Gerda rises, crosses to Sholto, center.
No, we'll do it together. We'll be rather wistful and say she is the only one here who really understands us.
Oh, I doubt if she knows anything at all.
We'll find out or die. Go and call her.
Now?
Yes. We ought to discover as much as possible before the ball. You never know what crisis might happen at a ball. Think of Donald Hake.
Sholto, going to drawing room door.
Normal, healthy, amusing, and drunk.
Gramophone foxtrot heard off.
Pretty dear.
Crosses to drawing room door. Calls.
Priscilla! Priscilla! Do be a lamb and come and talk to us.
Moves back to center. Gerda, who has followed and is now right center, takes Sholto's hand. In a hoarse whisper.
Don't look so cheerful. Remember, Mother drinks like a fish, and our life's been hell.
Sholto goes to top of settee, gloomily.
We must get sympathy at all cost.
Back to settee, sits. Priscilla, off.
All right, wait a minute. Claude, dance with Sybil, and Sybil, dance with Claude. That's right.
She enters. Priscilla. All alone? What is it? Gerda, hesitatingly.
Will you close the door?
Priscilla, closing it, crosses to center.
What is it? You make me go all creepy-weepy. Do tell me.
It's... Oh, tell her, Sholto. I can't.
She bursts into tears. Sholto looks rather flummoxed. Sholto, lamely.
Well, you see, we...
Priscilla crosses to settee, sits.
Don't cry, Gerda. Tell Pussy all about it.
Sholto, left center, top of settee, pulling himself together.
It's this, Priscilla. We are both a little unhappy. Don't think me a silly ass and all that, but we failed. Failed miserably.
And we've come to you because you are the only one who has been really kind and can understand.
How do you mean you failed?
Sholto, center.
We wanted to make our stepmother Cicely, well, fond of us. And, oh, I know you think I'm a sentimental fool.
Turns.
But we haven't had much real love in our lives, taken all round, and...
But your mother, your own mother, you're always talking about her.
Gerda dramatically rises, drops down.
Words, words, words.
Blows nose.
Oh, Priscilla.
Back to settee, sits.
Could you not see beyond? Listen, I'll tell you everything.
So will I.
Sits on settee.
Our life, up to now, has been a hell upon earth.
What?
A bitter hell. Our mother.
Sholto, sorrowfully.
God forgive her.
Our mother has, among many others, one terrible trait in her character. She... Oh, how can I say it? She drinks like a fish.
Exactly like a fish. If you only knew how utterly damnable existence has been for us, you'd sympathize.
Priscilla, thrilled.
But I do sympathize. I never realized. I never guessed.
All rise and move down to front. Gerda, left center.
Of course not. How could you? But we felt we just couldn't keep it back any longer. Stepmother Cicely hates us. We've tried. How we've tried to make things different between us. But it's no use. She's bitterly prejudiced.
Sholto, right center.
You see, our mother...
Gerda, left center.
God forgive her.
Sholto chokes and recovers himself.
Our mother, when she left poor father...
Priscilla, center.
Left him? But I thought...
That they mutually agreed to separate? I know.
He laughs hollowly.
That's what everyone thinks.
Down right and back.
She ran away with an Italian count.
Gerda, descriptively.
With a long black beard.
Damn him!
Gerda, hurriedly.
And it ruined her life and his life and Daddy's life and our lives and...
Oh, you poor darlings.
Embraces Gerda. Sholto, warming to his work.
Daily, we watched our mother sinking. Ah, Madonna mia, che disastro!
Gramophone foxtrot heard off. Priscilla, anxiously.
What does that mean?
Oh, it's nothing. Sholto always lapses into Italian when he's worked up. But don't you see what we're aiming at? Cicely, our stepmother, is about to do the same fatal thing with Roddy Masters. You know, we know, and yet we're impotent. Impotent.
How did you know?
Oh, that doesn't matter, but you must help us. Oh, please.
Both shake her hands.
Please say you'll help us.
Oh, I will.
It must be stopped at all costs.
Priscilla, ruminatively.
Of course, people are beginning to talk.
All cross left. Both pull her round.
But you're intimate with her. She tells you everything. Is she? Does she love Roddy as much as our poor mother loved...
Sholto, with vigor.
Dio perdonila.
Was that his name?
Yes. Count Dio perdonila. Curse him.
Well, I know Roddy loves Cicely terribly. I've seen some of his letters. Frightfully passionate they were. But whether she really loves him?
That's the whole point.
Do you think George ought to be told?
Sholto, center.
No, no, no.
Start apart.
Not until it's absolutely necessary. All you want to do is to understand and watch with us. For instance, tell us tonight if you see them leaving the ballroom together.
Do you think she loves him enough to...
I know she's very fond of him.
How fond?
Shh! Look out!
Enter Claude. Crosses to center. All break away. Gerda to left.
I say, Priscilla, do come and dance.
Sholto, with great display of presence of mind, crosses right center.
Don't forget now, Priscilla. Third Toxtrot after we get there.
Priscilla, nodding mysteriously,
I won't forget.
crosses to Claude. Claude, center, suspiciously.
Are you three up to some rag or something?
Priscilla, left center.
No, Claude. Gerda and Sholto were rather worried and wanted to ask my advice, that was all.
What about?
Sholto, right.
The political crisis in Bulgaria?
But there isn't one.
Nonsense. There's always a political crisis in Bulgaria, the same as there's always haggis in Scotland. It's traditional.
I say, you are talking rot.
Come along and dance again, Claude.
Going.
You're too curious. Come to my room tonight before you go to bed, Gerda dear. We'll talk about you-know-what.
Exit, soused in mystery.
There seems to be a lot of secrecy going on about something.
Hush!
Claude follows Priscilla into drawing room. Gerda sits on settee.
I don't believe she knows very much more than we do.
Sholto, center.
Never mind, we've got her on our side. She'll tell us at once if she does hear anything.
Anyhow, I think Cicely's affair with Roddy is a little more serious than we thought.
I hope to heaven it is.
Crosses left.
Yes, but the worst of it is, Cicely won't do anything decisive unless we force her hand.
We're no use there. Father is the only one who would have the slightest effect.
Sits on fender.
If he could only be particularly irritating to her, tonight of all nights, everything would be all right.
Couldn't we make him?
Yes, but how?
Gerda, thoughtfully.
Sweet memories that bless and burn are always useful. We must have a heart-to-heart talk with him. You see, it isn't a question of Cicely not caring for him anymore. She frankly hates him.
She's too silly to appreciate him.
Exactly. But it makes things easier for us. Daddy loves Mother best, and always has at heart. We know that. The question is,
how to reunite the two bleeding souls. Oh, for heaven's sake, let's concentrate. Think, think, think.
Clutches his head. Enter George from drawing room. George, moving to left center, head of settee.
What's the matter, Sholto? Got a headache?
No, he's only feeling a bit homesick, that's all. We often get waves of it, don't we, dear?
Rather. It's damnable being away from Mother for long. You see, we're so used to having her there always, to laugh with us.
There's no one in the world with a sense of humor like Mother. No wonder you married her.
What was she like then, Father?
George comes down left center.
Judging from your frequent descriptions, very like she is now.
She told us all about the wedding and the honeymoon in the Channel Islands.
And you took so much seasick that you were drugged into a state of coma for 3 days.
So tiresome for any young bride.
Yes, but it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. We were gloriously happy. Jersey, Guernsey, Alderney, and Sark. They are magical names, aren't they?
They're magic places, especially Sark.
George, center.
Have you been there?
Of course. We go nearly every year. Mother always insists.
George, center.
Does she, by Jove?
Yes. She's really a mass of sentiment, in spite of her literary cynicism. She likes old work boxes and places where she lived when she was a girl, and best of all, Sark.
She makes us sit on the jetty of Crewe Harbour and watch the passengers land from the Guernsey boat. And when she sees a young man and woman together, she sniffs a little and says, "That might be dear George and me. Aren't memories painful, darlings?"
She always calls us darlings, even when she's lived with us. Habit, I suppose.
George, center, far away.
Yes, she had lots of quaint habits.
Why did you ever stop loving her?
Didn't she tell you about that, too?
No, she only remembers pleasant things.
Well, so do I, so we won't discuss it.
Crosses right to table.
You've never been very good at facing facts, have you, Daddy?
How do you mean?
If only you and Mother hadn't shirked in the first place, we should all be together now, instead of being parted by the English Channel and the divorce courts.
In what way shirked?
Well, you both thought yourselves too clever, and used temperament as an excuse for your rows. If only you'd faced the fact that it was pure selfishness and intolerance from beginning to end, all this trouble would have been saved.
George, unexpectedly.
You mean the trouble you two are taking in order to reconcile your mother and myself against our wills?
He's got us again, dear. You must be more subtle.
The music stops. Gerda rises, crosses to George. Gently.
If we really thought that it was against your wills, we should never attempt it.
Sholto rises, crosses to center.
As it is, we mean to strain every nerve.
Crosses right behind Gerda.
Then you declare war on the peace of my country life. You intend to uproot me, regardless of any such trifling bonds as honor and good name.
Gerda, firmly.
Yes, we do.
And you think it possible, supposing all obstacles were swept away and you accomplished this, that your mother and I should be happy together?
Sholto, with equal firmness.
Yes, we do.
George, right center, defiantly.
Well, let me tell you, you're wrong. Thoroughly wrong. You're astute, precocious young devils, but you've made one grave mistake. You think that I'm still in love with your mother. Well, I'm not. I don't love anyone. I'm content and peaceful here. My life is perfectly happy. I have a certain amount of responsibility, but not too much. I hunt and shoot and read and eat and sleep, and I'm getting too old to require anything more.
Takes their hands.
I agreed that you should come here, not because of any sentimental desire to see you, but because Sholto is to be my heir. It is right that he should get some idea of his future position in life. You and your mother mean nothing to me, nothing. And apart from a certain amount of superficial amusement, I shouldn't mind if I never set eyes on you again. Your conceit is colossal to imagine that I should be willing to leave this life to which I have grown so accustomed and join you in yours, even if it were possible. But thank God it isn't possible. It isn't possible. I'm entrenched here, and here I mean to stay. Please never let me hear the subject mentioned again.
Goes to chair at table right and sits. Gerda, after a slight pause.
What a wonderful liar you are, Daddy.
You don't suppose we believe a word of all that nonsense?
I allow you a certain amount of license, but I will not stand rudeness.
Gerda, following George.
It's no use blustering, Daddy. It won't have the slightest effect. You see, we know the truth. Why not give in, gracefully? You'll have to in the end.
George, suddenly serious.
I can't give in. You don't understand. I'm not like you without any moral sense at all. I wish to God I were. I've blundered badly in life, and I've got to put up with the consequences. People don't get second chances of happiness in this world. They're lucky if they even get a first chance. Well, I've had that, and I chucked it away when I agreed to let your mother divorce me. Then, in order to tie me down still more, fate ordained that I should be left this house and estate, and I had to have someone to run it with me. I wrote to Jennifer, asking her to patch everything up and come back, but she wouldn't. She was always as obstinate as a mule.
Gerda, right center, going to George.
Yes, but a nice mule.
Then Cicely appeared. Cicely was quite adorable once, and radiantly pretty.
Sholto, right, and now sitting on table, right.
Prettier than Mother?
Much. Then I married her and started the business of settling down. I religiously forgot Jennifer for almost 2 years. Then Cicely began getting tiresome and having affairs with stupid young men, and Jennifer's memory came back and taunted me and laughed at me. It's been doing that for nearly 14 years now.
The following scene is to be played very quickly, and excitedly worked up to a climax.
And you're going to let it continue for 14 years more?
Moves left.
Oh no, it will probably die a natural death before then.
Sholto on table, pensively.
It must be awful to have a conscience.
It is.
Gerda, left center to George, softly.
It would be such fun, all going back together.
Goes to and takes George by hands. George holding up his hand.
Now then.
Rises and moves to center.
But it would. Think of the thrill of it.
Sholto rises to right center.
We'd stop in Paris for a day or two.
Just do a little shopping and go to some plays.
Then the Orient Express.
One on either side of George. Gerda, excitedly.
The Orient Express. We get into it at about 7:30 and have dinner as we whiz through the suburbs.
Then we come back and find our wagonlets have been made up, so we sit in rather strained positions and play games.
Clumps. And being people in history. Lovely.
You have to wake up for a minute in the middle of the night because of the Swiss customs.
Then in the morning, the very early morning, you peep out, And it's all mountains and valleys and rushing torrents and white, white snow as far as you can see.
George, carried away.
Yes, yes, wonderful.
Then the Simplon Tunnel and Italy.
We pass Lake Maggiore on the left-hand side. Glorious clear blue water and mountains going straight out of it.
The villas dotted over the hills like pink sweets in a green cake.
Shut up, both of you. I've seen it. I know it.
Then Milan. We change at Milan.
And there's 2 hours to wait, so we can drive about the town.
In the gorgeous hot sun.
We can send a wire to Mother from there to tell her what time to expect us.
She'll be so excited.
Stop, stop. I tell you.
Crosses down left. Both follow George left.
Oh, Daddy, darling, why not chuck all the honor and English gentleman stunts and come with us? It's worth trying.
Sholto crosses left center to behind Gerda left center.
You've been divorced once. It's sure to be much easier a second time.
George left.
No use. I shouldn't be happy. I've got to stick to my guns. I told Cicely on the day you came that, providing she behaved herself and didn't allow things to become blatant.
Enter Priscilla and Sybil from drawing room.
I would say nothing.
We're just going upstairs to tidy ourselves. Cicely says we'll have to be starting soon.
They go upstairs. Sholto, left center, brightly.
Roddy isn't here yet. Surely we shan't start without him.
Priscilla, from landing.
Oh, he won't be long now. Anyhow, we must powder our noses.
Exeunt both upstairs. George goes and sits on fender. Gerda, left.
Quick, Daddy. You've got to make up your mind. We'll help you in everything.
George, left, quietly.
I have made up my mind. I'm going to stick to Cicely as long as she sticks to me. I must. It's not melodramatic self-sacrifice. It's just playing the game. Though you may not see it in that light, it is true nevertheless.
Sholto, left center.
Very well, then. If you intend to be as pig-headed as that, we shall have to be firm with you.
And manage things in our own way.
Enter Cecily. She comes to center. George, alarmed.
Look here, what do you mean? I absolutely forbid you.
It's no use trying to forbid us, Daddy darling. We're quite determined.
George.
Come, Sholto.
Both going up.
All right.
Exeunt Sholto and Gerda upstairs. Cecily, left center.
I should be very much obliged, George, if you would ask your charming son and daughter to be a little more polite to me. They have been particularly rude this evening.
George by fender left, half laughing.
I notice they both leave the room the moment you enter it.
They're intolerable.
George, left.
Why, you are always so prickly, like a cactus hedge.
Cecily, left center.
I can see nothing amusing in calling your wife a cactus hedge. Having placed me in an insufferable position, you...
If you're alluding to matrimony, dear, it's a trouble many better women have had to face.
I don't think flippancy suits you.
Jennifer used to love me to be flippant.
Need we talk about Jennifer? Is it quite good taste?
Going up.
I only mentioned her in passing. She is now nothing but a memory.
Cecily turns down.
It's a pity you can't forget her.
The moment one forgets a memory, it ceases to be a memory. I shall remember her always.
I'm going upstairs. However charming Jennifer was in the flesh, as a topic of conversation, she bores me.
She goes up toward stairs. George follows Cecily up right center.
Don't go upstairs, Cicely. I'm sorry. Honestly, I am. I didn't mean to be irritating, but you were rather beastly about Sholto and Gerda, and that made me temporarily lose sight of my objective.
Cecily, coming down to George.
What objective?
Oh, Cicely.
Pause.
Time was when we used to crouch together over the crackling logs and gaze on life in perfect unison. Let's try to get back.
What on earth are you talking about?
I don't know. There are moments when I really want to be sincere, and then all my facetiousness crops up and prevents me. I want to be sincere now. The crackling logs and gazing on life was all nonsense. What I really mean is this. Let's stop being bitter and horrid to one another. It doesn't lead anywhere.
Are you trying to apologize to me, George?
No, dear, but I will if you like. What shall I apologize for?
Cecily, bitterly.
There are so many things.
Crosses left to settee. George, with a faint smile.
Oh, won't you meet me halfway, Cicely?
Cecily, flaring up.
Why should I meet you halfway? You don't seem to realize that you've made me the laughingstock of the county.
Nonsense.
Drops down right.
It isn't nonsense. What other woman would stand it? Those affected artificial children of yours always sniggering in corners and making inane remarks. They haven't attempted to learn anything about the life down here. They just laugh and giggle and talk about their mother.
Sits on settee. George, hotly.
Nicer to them, they wouldn't talk about their mother. You've ignored them and tried to snub them ever since they arrived. Isn't that rather asking for trouble?
They ought never to have come at all.
Cicely, for the last time I ask you.
Crosses to left center.
Let's stop dead now and finish with all our bickering and beastliness. I mean it. We can't go on like this. We must pull ourselves together. Make an effort.
If you send Sholto and Gerda away, I'll think about it. But if you expect me to be nice and charming...
George, center, losing control.
I shall never expect you to be nice and charming, and I shall never ask them to go away. They shall come as often as they like and stay as long as they like. I was preparing myself to do without them, but now I realize I couldn't. I couldn't ever, and I don't intend to try.
Turns away up. Cecily, quietly.
I shall leave you, George.
George, center.
I shouldn't, if you don't like being the laughingstock of the county.
Cecily, bursting into tears of rage.
You've been horrible to me lately, all the time. You don't love me anymore, and you let everyone see it.
George, center.
What steps have you taken lately towards making me love you?
Laughs.
Huh. Oh, this is so stupid and useless. Tonight I made an effort to bury the hatchet, and you turned me down, as you always turn me down. We'd better go on as we are. Cactus hedges, so ornamental and so damned uncomfortable.
Exit George to the dining room. Cecily sits on sofa downstage, and twists her handkerchief into knots. She exudes fury at every pore. Enter Roddy from front door center, comes down.
Hello, Cicely. What time are you all starting? Why, what's the matter?
Nothing.
Cicely, tell me.
I tell you there's nothing.
Why have you been crying, then?
I have a headache and I'm generally depressed.
Have you had a row with George?
I wish you wouldn't say that. It sounds horrible.
Roddy, doggedly.
Well, have you?
Oh, Roddy, don't go on cross-examining me.
Roddy sits by her.
Now look here, Cicely. This is the last time I shall see you for months, and I won't have you unhappy without knowing the cause. I suppose you imagine that I'm not worthy of your confidence, that I haven't meant everything I've said.
No, Roddy, no.
Tell me, has George discovered about us?
Yes.
When? Tonight? Just now?
No, a week ago.
Why in God's name didn't you let me know?
Oh, what was the use?
Roddy, firmly.
This is the use. It means you must come away with me at once. You couldn't stay on here with George knowing everything. It would be intolerable for you. I love you, Cicely. You know I do. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone before.
She turns away.
You've got to believe it. I want you. There's no sense in sticking to a man who no longer gives a damn for you. I love you, I love you, I love you. I feel I must go on saying it over and over again to try and convince you. I'll make you happy, gloriously happy. Don't turn me down, for God's sake. I can't go away without you now. I should go off my head longing for you, aching for you. Come with me. Come with me. You must. You must.
Cecily, suddenly.
Very well, I will come away with you. I hate George. I hate his children. I hate his house. I hate everything to do with him. How I've stood it for so long I can't imagine. His stupid jokes and what he thinks is a subtle sense of humor, the way he cringes. Don't let's be bitter and horrid any more. What a manly choice of expressions, bitter and horrid. Oh, I tell you I hate him. If you want me, I'll go wherever you take me.
Do you mean it? Do you honestly mean it?
Cecily rises, crosses the center. Hysterically.
Yes, yes. Can't you see I mean it? He can go back to his beastly Jennifer. Jennifer, Jennifer, Jennifer. I get nothing but Jennifer from morning till night. Will I wish her joy of him and dear Sholto and Gerda? Such adorable young devils with such adorable senses of humor. Self-satisfied, odious little toads. I hate them and I hate George. Do you want me to come with you tomorrow?
No, tonight, before you change your mind.
Rises. Cecily, rather tremulous.
Do you really love me like that, Roddy? How wonderful of you.
You know I do, now.
Crosses to Cecily.
What time does the boat sail tomorrow?
4:30 from Liverpool. You'll have to see about a passport.
Shall I have time?
Yes, if you can get to London before tomorrow morning. We'll motor up tonight.
How, without George finding out and trying to stop us?
You'll have to pack a few things, won't you?
Yes, it won't take a moment. Listen, meet me about 2 hours after we get to the ball and motor me back here. I'll pick up my suitcase, leave a note for George, and we can go right away. Your stuff can be sent straight to Liverpool.
Roddy, embracing her.
Oh, you're wonderful, wonderful.
Cecily, struggling.
No, not now. Wait. George must know nothing until we've gone. Oh, wait.
Let them all come in. I don't care. I'm going to kiss you, now.
He kisses her passionately. Quick curtain. Scene 2. When the curtain rises, the stage is in darkness. The noise of a car is heard retreating. Sholto and Gerda enter and turn up lamp by staircase. There is still a certain amount of light from the fire. Gerda takes off her cloak and flings it over banisters, then sinks into armchair by table, right, with a sigh. Gerda, right.
What time is it?
Sholto, left center, looking at wristwatch.
2:30.
He takes off his coat.
I expect that depressing orgy will go on until 5 or 6. Thank heavens the Brodies gave us a lift home.
Yes, I couldn't have put up with another minute.
Sits right.
I suppose it was too much to hope that the county would be able to dance as well as ride.
Sholto, center.
I loved it all. The floral decorations and the nice, jolly girls in pinks and blues and the heat and everyone treading on everyone else. Such a merry prank.
Crosses left to settee.
I'm sorry you didn't have a rag, dear. I hoped you'd trip somebody up, or do something roguish like Donald Hake.
Dear Donald Hake, did you enjoy your dance with him?
Awfully. His hands were like wet hot water bottles.
And your passionate waltz with Claude Eccles?
That was sheer ecstasy, too. Have you ever danced with a threshing machine?
Not yet, but Bounding Julia's nearly as bad. Oh, I do wish we were in a Lazio, at the Combattente.
Gerda rises, crosses to center.
On a festa night.
Sholto, left center.
With Tonio and Gianetta and Maria.
And Giuseppe dressed as Pierrot, and all the confetti and everything. Sholto, let's go back.
Not without father.
Gerda, dismally.
We could stop in Paris for a day or two.
Sholto, equally dismal.
To do some shopping and go to some plays.
Gerda, hopelessly.
Then the Orient Express.
Damn the Orient Express.
Gerda, right center.
Oh, we've been fools. If only we'd never come at all, we shouldn't have wanted him so much.
Sholto, left center.
It will be absolutely miserable. That journey alone, after all we said this evening.
I felt him trembling all the time, didn't you?
Yes.
And his face when he said about Mother's memory taunting him. I could have cried.
Yes.
You see, he wants to come back to us so desperately.
If only it weren't for his beastly principles.
He wouldn't be such a darling without them.
No, I suppose not.
But to think that his future happiness and Mother's and ours hangs on Cicely. It's miserable.
I did hope she'd do something desperate tonight. After all, Roddy leaves England tomorrow.
Gerda crosses to Sholto.
Couldn't we force Cicely on board the boat as a cabin boy or something?
Sholto, center.
It's too late now. We've failed in our little mission. Let's go to bed before we burst into tears.
They take hands and go up the stairs. Gerda, taking up cloak.
All right. Turn out the light, dear.
She yawns.
Oh, I'm so tired.
Sholto, switching off light.
Damn everything.
They go slowly upstairs in the firelight.
I rather wish we hadn't put Priscilla up to Cicely and Roddy. She's sure to go and blurt it out to everyone. She's such an utter idiot.
It doesn't make any odds now.
They just reach the top of the stairs when the noise of a car is heard. The headlights shine right across the windows as it pulls up outside.
Who can it be? Father?
Go down and look through the window.
They both run down and look through the windows. Sholto, excitedly.
It's Roddy!
And Cicely, alone. Hide behind the curtains, quick.
Sholto goes up for coat, puts chair back. They conceal themselves behind curtains. Enter Cecily and Roddy. Roddy turns up lights.
I've only got to get my motor coat and hat. And the 2 bags.
Roddy, following her upstairs.
What about the note?
That's already written. I did it before I went out.
You darling!
Exeunt both upstairs. Sholto and Gerda come out of their hiding place.
What luck!
Sholto, in a joyous whisper.
They're going to do it, after all! What luck! Oh, Gerda!
Gerda, to center.
Shh! We mustn't let them hear us. I wouldn't disturb them for the world.
Sholto, towards stairs.
This will clinch things, finally! Absolutely! You'll have to divorce her.
Gerda, center.
And come back with us. It's too wonderful. Sholto, darling, it's going to be all right.
They'll be down in a minute. We'd better get back.
Crosses to window.
Yes.
They are just about to reconceal themselves when there is the noise of another car drawing up outside. Sholto, in anguish, looking through window.
My hat! It's Father!
And Priscilla! What are we to do? Quick, they'll spoil everything.
Sholto, grimly.
That's what they've come for. Priscilla's found out and warned him. The stupid, blundering little fool.
Gerda, frantically.
Oh, quick, what are we to do?
Up.
What are we to do? Cicely and Roddy, they're coming down.
Hide! Don't come out till it's absolutely necessary.
They hide behind curtains again. There is the noise of outer hall door opening. Re-enter Cecily in traveling coat and hat, followed by Roddy with 2 bags. As they reach the bottom of the stairs, Priscilla and George enter. Roddy stops by stairs. Cecily right center up. Priscilla, thoroughly in the picture, rushing forward.
Oh, Cecily, thank God we came in time.
George moves to top of settee.
Stop. You mustn't do this fearful thing. You'll break George's heart. He loves you. I love you. We all love you. Look before you leap. Don't leap.
Cecily, right center.
Priscilla! How dare you?
George, left, firmly.
Be quiet, Mrs. Hartlebury. Cecily, what does this mean?
Crosses to Cecily, right center. Priscilla turns to George hysterically.
Don't you see? It's what I told you. We came in the nick of time. Cecily, think of your honor, your good name.
She bursts into tears, moves up left center.
Please, Mrs. Hartlebury, will you calm yourself? Cecily, I should like an explanation.
Cecily, handing him a note.
Here's the explanation. There's nothing to say. I'm quite determined.
George, taking it and tearing it neatly across.
The farewell note. Thank you, Cecily. How dramatic. Roddy, will you please go? I wish to talk to my wife.
Roddy, right center.
Not without Cicely.
Looking at Cecily.
There's nothing to talk about. My mind is quite made up.
On the contrary, there are several things to discuss. Roddy, I wish to talk to Cecily privately.
Roddy, stay, please. You'd better say whatever you have to say quickly, George. We haven't very much time.
Very well. You wish to leave me for Roddy. Openly?
Cecily, center, defiantly.
Yes.
George, left.
I forbid it.
You can't prevent it.
Priscilla, by settee.
Oh, Cecily, how can you? It's wicked,
She sobs and comes round to front of settee.
Do you realize what you are doing? You're chucking home position?
Your honor, your good name.
I love Roddy, and I'm going away with him. I wish you'd put an end to this scene, George, and let us go.
You're going abroad to restricted colonial society with a man to whom you are not married. Can't you imagine what hell it will be? You'll be cut, universally. You won't like being out, Cecily. Why don't you pause and think? You don't love Roddy, really, you know.
I do.
No, you don't love anyone. You're taking this step because you're rather tired of me and in a general bad temper over everything. those are not very good reasons for an elopement.
Roddy, right, hotly.
You're wrong. We've loved each other for months. That is, at least we've...
Will you please let me speak?
This is all useless anyhow. Can't you see it is? Nothing you say will make any difference.
Cicely, once and for all, don't make this stupid blunder. Stay with me. Have one more try to settle down contentedly. I'll help all I can, I promise. Then, if it really is a failure, in spite of our united efforts, we'll arrange things quietly, without scandal. I'll let you divorce me, or...
Cecily, rather shaken.
George, it's very magnanimous of you. I don't know that I...
Roddy, anxiously.
Cicely!
Cecily, putting her hand to her head.
Don't, Roddy, let me think.
Crosses down right center. Sholto and Gerda simultaneously burst from behind the curtains and more or less fling themselves upon Cecily.
Oh, stepmother! Oh, stepmother!
George goes up. Sholto, dramatically.
Oh, don't go, dear stepmother. Cicely, don't go.
We want you with us. We're going to stay here always.
We can have such happy, happy times together.
Priscilla moves up to the back.
Just you and Daddy and us.
Sometimes Mother can come and stay with us, too.
Cecily, shaking with fury.
This is intolerable. Intolerable. Don't speak to me, any of you. I hate you. I hate you all.
Goes up center.
I've finished with you, George, forever. Do you hear? Absolutely. I never want to see you again. Come, Roddy.
Going. George makes a last effort. Priscilla, rushing after Cecily and clutching her.
Cecily! Cecily, for God's sake, stop! Their mother ran away with the Count and drinks like a fish. Oh, dear! Oh, dear!
Cecily shakes her off and goes out with Roddy. Priscilla staggers into George's arms, sobbing. He tries vainly to rid himself of her. Sholto, suddenly.
Great Scott! They've forgotten the bags! After them, quick!
Sholto and Gerda each snatch up a bag and rush off the stage. Curtain. End of Act 2. Act 3 of The Young Idea, a comedy in 3 acts by Noel Coward. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Young Idea, Act 3. Scene: the living room of Mrs. Brent's villa in Alassio, Italy. When the curtain rises, the stage is in semi-darkness. The outline of the room can be vaguely distinguished in the gloom. 2 very large arches at the back, with green shutters down over them. Maria enters quietly, and commences to pull up the shutters. As she does so, the room is flooded with hot sunlight. It becomes obvious that the walls are painted salmon color, and there are various colored cushions and rugs lying around. There is a grand piano and a huge bureau writing desk. On the writing desk, there are 2 big frames containing pictures of Cecily and George, respectively. The writing desk is littered with papers. A typewriter stands on the floor beside it. The whole room has a lived-in atmosphere. Colors are jumbled together irrespective of what goes with what, but the result is thoroughly pleasing and comfortable. There is a straight line of terrace outside, also painted salmon pink. Beyond this can be seen the tops of 2 or 3 cypresses, and then deep blue sky and sea. As Maria lets the sunlight into the room, Jennifer sits up on the couch right on which she has been resting. She is a chic, golden-haired woman, dressed in a scarlet overall with a belt. Maria comes down to set tea.
What time is it, Maria?
5 minutes past 3, Signora.
I thought I told you not to disturb me until 4.
Si, Signora, but Signor Walken has just arrived.
She sniggers.
He has with him a large bunch of flowers.
How typical. Wait a moment, Maria. I suppose I must see him. Fancy clambering up that steep hill so soon after lunch. Americans have no repose. Give me my bag. It's on the desk.
Maria crosses to desk left.
Si, Signora.
Maria, in taking bag from desk, knocks the photograph of Cecily onto the floor.
That is the 3rd time in the last week that you have knocked down my late husband's second wife's photograph.
Maria picks it up and scrutinizes it.
It is not broken.
She bangs it down on the desk.
You did it on purpose.
She is a cow. I know it.
Maria, that is not the way to speak. Anyhow, in English. If you must be disrespectful, keep it to Italian.
Maria in Italian.
Vacca. Figlia di molte vacche.
Maria, that's enough. Give me my bag at once.
Maria gives her bag, and then returns to desk and gazes at George's photograph.
He very beautiful man.
Jennifer, powdering her nose.
No, Maria, boundless charm, but not beautiful.
Maria, shaking her head sorrowfully.
Dio mio, it is sad.
Go away, Maria, you are getting on my nerves.
Si, signora.
Jennifer, rising and patting her hair into place before glass.
Show Mr. Walkin in.
Si, signora.
Crosses right. Jennifer crosses to fireplace left.
You speak English very well now, Maria, but I do wish you'd remember to say very good when I ask you to do anything. English butlers always say it. It gives one a nice feeling of security.
Very good, signora.
That's right.
Maria goes out, and in a moment returns. Maria announcing,
Mr. Watkin.
Enter Hiram J. Walken. He is a prosperous, stout man of about 50. He goes center.
Mrs. Brent, please forgive me for coming up so early, but I had to bring you these.
He offers her a large bunch of orchids.
How perfectly delightful of you. Sit down and talk to me. Maria, fetch me that tall blue vase from my bedroom. No, take these and put them into it, carefully with a nice lot of water.
Hiram goes up, puts down hat at the back. Maria, taking them.
Very good, signora.
Jennifer, smiling at Hiram.
Wait, I think I'd rather like to wear one.
She detaches one from the bunch. Hiram beams with delight.
I knew that your youngsters are coming back today.
Yes, isn't it splendid? I've missed them terribly.
I'm looking forward to making their acquaintance. I just love children.
Jennifer, raising her eyebrows.
Children? Well, you won't be disappointed if they don't cluster round your knee, will you?
Crosses left center.
I haven't brought them up to cluster.
You bet I shan't. I like kids to be independent.
That's right. You'll be pleased.
Plucky little devils going all that way by themselves.
I feel I ought to tell you, Mr. Walkin, that...
She smiles.
Well, perhaps after all it isn't necessary. You'll see for yourself. Would you like anything cool to drink? Maria's so good at mixing things up.
Crosses, sits at desk.
No thanks. I knew your children were returning today.
Yes, I know you knew.
And I came up here specially because...
Now, don't tell me it's the same old purpose in a different disguise. My last answer was quite final.
Mrs. Brent, by the way, you let me call you Jennifer last time.
Yes, I was wondering why you were being so formal with me today. Call me anything you like. That is, I mean, within reason.
And you said you'd call me Hiram.
Never, never. If I were married to you 18 times, I should never call you Hiram. As a name, I dislike it intensely, but this is mere trifling.
I guess I've got to propose to you again, Jennifer.
Go on, then.
Hiram sits.
Will you marry me?
Yes.
What? You will? You say yes?
Yes.
But you said your last answer was quite final.
So it was at that time, but I've been thinking things over since then.
You are tantalizing.
Rises. Jennifer, warding him off.
Now, wait a moment. This ought by rights to be a great moment in both of our lives. Let's endeavour to keep calm in it. Sit down again.
But, you've bowled me over. You've...
All the more reason for you to sit down.
He sits.
I have a lot to say to you. You have been a very persistent wooer, Mr. Walkin.
Hiram!
Never. We'll think of a name for you afterwards. I said you have been a very persistent wooer, and though you haven't exactly swept me off my feet, you certainly have worn me down. I have said yes, But before we come to any definite arrangement, there are several facts that will need to be faced.
Look here, I don't care how many facts there are.
If you don't listen to me quietly, I shall go and have a bath.
Proceed.
Well, to begin with, I don't love you any more than you love me.
Here, I guess I've...
Jennifer, holding up her hand.
Please, let me go on. You are going to protest undying affection and heartfelt passion. Well, that's all rubbish. We're both getting too old for either of those things. Don't think I'm unable to see your point in wanting to marry me. I can see it perfectly. I'm quite nice to look at, something of a celebrity, very amusing as a companion, and you think you're in love with me.
I am in love with you.
Well, we'll let that pass for a moment. The fact remains that I am not in the least in love with you.
He rises.
I know it's a dreadful habit being perfectly frank, but occasionally it becomes necessary. I like you enormously.
He sits again.
You're altogether a charming person, and I am willing to marry you for many reasons.
It will be springing a grand surprise on the youngsters.
They are one of the reasons. I've often felt that there should be a man in the background to help and advise them. That's why I sent them over to England to see their father. Not that he would be much use. He gets so dreadfully muddled. But still, you would be good for Sholto. Having been wildly ambitious in your life, you might be able to inspire him with some of it. And it would be so nice for them to live in your house. It's so much nearer the sea. And they'd be able to run straight out with the Macintoshes over their bathing dresses. That's another of the reasons.
You're a wonderful woman.
Jennifer, ignoring his interruption.
Also, they'll probably want to marry or emigrate or something tiresome, and I should be left alone. I hate being alone at any time. Growing old is a dreary enough performance, even when one is surrounded by grandchildren and kindly relatives and pattering feet.
I was thinking of that, too.
Oh, well, you'll never need want for pattering feet. I'm sure that there are lots of people who'd be charmed to marry you, apart from me, altogether. You're a very rich man, you know.
I had noticed it.
I feel more comfortable now that I've told you some of my reasons. There are lots of others, but I shall probably remember them later. Now, let's think of an attractive name for you.
You know, I don't quite get you. You're sometimes very difficult to understand. Are you laughing at me?
My dear man, of course not. Why should I?
Oh, I don't know, but you were so very determined not to marry me last week, and now you say you will because your children will be able to run out of my house with Macintoshes over their bathing dresses.
If you are regretting your proposal, I shall release you without the slightest bitterness. I do see your point of view.
See here, cut that now. I'm not backing out.
Rises. Jennifer rises.
No, but I do, really. I ought either to have become terribly dignified when you asked me and said, "No, I live only for my work and for my little ones." Or else I should have yielded blushingly to your embraces and said, "I'm so tired of living alone with only Sholto and Gerda and Maria and the cook and my secretary and the dog. Take me. I'm yours."
Now you're laughing again.
Sits. Jennifer sits.
I know it's dreadfully tiresome of me, but you'll soon get used to it. I've never been able to take anything seriously after 11 o'clock in the morning.
Are you going to tell Sholto and Gerda directly they arrive?
Of course, they will be so surprised, the darlings.
Enter Maria hurriedly.
Signora, the carriage is coming up the hill. You told me to let you know at once.
It can't be. It's hours too early.
But see, Signora, I see them from the terrace.
Jennifer goes to window left.
It is. They'll probably get out at the bottom gate and walk up. You'd better go and help with the luggage.
See, Signora.
Very good.
Very good.
Exit Maria.
Isn't Maria attractive? She has no morals and many more children than are usual for a single woman. You'd be better waiting in another room like the lovers and tales of Decameron, and I'll call you out. You can hide in the hall cupboard if you like.
Why should I hide?
Oh, of course there's no real necessity, but it's so much more amusing to be a little furtive. They'll probably insist on interviewing you, alone. But don't let them see you're frightened and all will be well.
I guess they won't scare me.
Don't be too sure. They once upset this English parson so much when he came to call that he fell into the goldfish pond from sheer nervousness. A lot of the goldfish died too. It was most vexing. Now you go into the dining room while I break the news and get the first joys of reunion over, then I'll call you.
Would you rather I went away and came back later?
Of course not. It will be much more dramatic if I can suddenly produce you. Go along now.
All right.
He advances towards her.
You've made me a darned happy man.
I am so glad.
She proffers her cheek, which he kisses.
You'll find some biscuits in a tin box on the sideboard.
She pushes him out of the room. She goes out onto the terrace and waves her handkerchief. Jennifer, calling,
Don't run so fast, darlings. You won't have any breath left.
Comes back into the room. Enter Sholto and Gerda, a little breathlessly, window right. They stand transfixed for a moment.
Mother! Mother! Little mother!
Weep no more, tiny mother. We have come home.
Jennifer, center, with arms outstretched.
Children, children, thank God, my babes at last.
They rush into her arms. Sholto, disentangling himself.
That's all right. How are you, darling?
Frightfully well, but I've missed you dreadfully.
They all sit on settee right.
Would you like something to drink? Maria's been awfully clever lately with the lemons and oranges and cloves and soda water all mixed up. It sounds filthy, I know, but it isn't really.
We'll have some in a minute. She's dragging our luggage up the hill at the moment, with Giuseppe.
Sholto, sitting back.
Whew, it's hot.
Tell me at once, how was George? And did you like him?
Of course we did. He's a darling.
And did he wear a pink coat when he was hunting? I should love to see George in a pink coat.
He looked rather like a musical comedy in it.
He wasn't born for the hunting world. He had a thrust upon him. Did you go to the meets and things?
I should just think we did. We used to sit in a dog cart on very cold mornings with pinched blue faces and watch hearty women leaping about on horses. It was awful.
And we'd drink lukewarm soup out of a thermos flask, wrap the rug more tightly round our legs, and think of the terrace here, in the hot sunlight with the cypresses and flowers.
And you, reading bits of things out loud to us. By the way, we must hear what you've done with your new book.
Yes, I've been wanting your help badly. I'm not a bit satisfied with it.
Read it now.
No, I simply couldn't. On your first day back. There are so many springs of news bubbling up inside all three of us. You'd be sure to stop me in the middle by suddenly remembering something really thrilling that couldn't wait to be told.
Yes, we probably should.
She puts her arms around Jennifer's neck.
You are a darling lamb, Mother. What a fool Daddy was.
Shut up, Gerda. That was most tactless.
No, but it would have been so lovely if Daddy's second marriage had turned out a failure, and he'd come back to you, and we were all together again. We did try so hard to pull it off.
Yes, I thought you would. But you see, the fact of his being so happy and contented proves that he was right after all.
Yes, I suppose so.
If only stepmother Cicely hadn't been so nice.
Jennifer, without enthusiasm.
I'm glad you liked her so much.
We adored her. We used to go for long picnics together.
From what you said just now, I should have thought it was rather cold for picnicking.
Sholto, with a warning glance at Gerda.
Not at all. We used to wear fur coats, and when we got back, we played hide-and-seek all over the house.
Sholto and I used to hide behind the curtains, and she and Roddy Masters.
Such a dear.
Jennifer, rather irritably, releasing herself from Gerda's clutch.
Don't, Gerda. You're tickling the back of my neck.
Sholto, with a look of triumph at Gerda.
Now we've annoyed her. On our first day back, too. We're beasts.
Utter beasts.
Jennifer, patting their backs.
No, you're nothing of the sort. But somehow, it's rather a shock, Cecily being so pleasant.
It's a little dog in the manger of you not to want her to be pleasant.
Oh, but I do. I'm awfully glad, really, for George's sake. I've wondered so often during the years you've been growing up whether our parting like that wasn't a very stupid and bitter mistake. But now, you see, I needn't have wondered at all. He's happy, and I've got you. So everything was for the best, wasn't it?
Yes, Mother, everything.
Jennifer, brightly, brushing away her memories.
And everything's going to be still more for the best.
How do you mean, Mummy?
I've got a surprise for you.
We've got a lovely surprise for you.
Not such a big one as mine.
I bet you it is.
Oh, but my dears.
Well, we'll tell you ours first.
You don't do anything of the sort. I'll tell you mine first. You will laugh.
Look here, we'd better toss for it.
Takes a coin from his pocket.
Come on, Mother. You call.
He tosses it. Jennifer, eagerly.
Heads.
Damn, heads it is.
Go on, darling.
Well, I give you one guess.
No, there's no time for guessing. You must tell us.
Well, it's this. I was a little doubtful as to whether it was wise to step or not, but you've both convinced me that I'm right. Prepare yourselves. I'm going to marry again.
Sholto and Gerda, aghast.
You're what?
Oh, I knew it would be a bit of a shock, but he's really quite a dear and so rich. He made his money out of putting soft rose in tins or something. So resourceful.
But, Mother, it's impossible. You simply can't.
Gerda, kicking him furtively.
Nonsense. Why not? I think it's thrilling. And what a surprise. Where is he, Mother?
In the dining room, having biscuits. You know, those nice crackly ones you like so much.
Gerda and Sholto rise.
We must see him at once.
Jennifer, relieved.
Of course you shall. I'm so glad you've taken it so well. I was a little frightened of telling you. But you see, he has that lovely villa just beyond the Covent Garden, practically on the beach. Think how convenient it will be.
It will be lovely.
He honestly is quite devoted to me, and I'm sure if only you're both a little tolerant, you'll grow very fond of him. He's not unlike your Uncle Bob in appearance, but of course with a much stronger face.
Uncle Bob was a complete dolt.
Shh, Sholto. Your Uncle Bob may have been a little stupid, but God knows he paid for it when he married your Auntie Clara.
All this is beside the point, Mother.
Nothing of the sort. I want to convince you, before you see him, that I really am doing a sensible thing in agreeing to marry him. It will mean lots and lots of money to do exactly what we like with. We shall be able to travel all over the place. And you know how we've always longed to go to China and Tibet and see all the monasteries and things. We shall be able to indulge all of our wildest dreams. And he's got quite a sense of humour, too. I think. Anyhow, it will be nice digging for it. And above everything else, he really is rather nice. I expect it's because he's so emphatically not one of the best American families.
Yes, but Mother...
And he told me the most divine things about Chicago. I never dreamt it was such a sweet place. What with the skyscrapers and soda fountains, like the Palace of Versailles.
Those were wine fountains, Mother.
Well, you know you don't like wine very much, so it'll be ever so much nicer.
You'll let us interview him alone, Mummy, won't you?
Yes, if you like, but...
You see, we feel a little responsible for you.
Tell me your surprise first.
Oh, no, ours will wait. It's not nearly so exciting as yours.
You will be nice to him, won't you?
We'll be charm personified. Send him in, Mother.
Both, on either side of her, take her hands.
Now? But we've hardly talked about anything. I'm sure he won't mind waiting a little longer.
No, we can talk our heads off afterwards. We must get this over first. See what his intentions are.
Dear old darlings.
Rises, kisses them both.
I'll go and fetch him. Call me when you've finished cross-examining him.
Crosses right.
All right.
Jennifer, at door.
I think he imagines you're about 12 years old. Let him down lightly.
Jennifer goes out. Sholto and Gerda look at one another in horror.
What are we to do? What are we to do?
This is frightful. Frightful. Let me think.
I suppose we couldn't make him drunk, like David Garrick.
We haven't time.
Sholto, clutching his head, throws himself on couch.
This is appalling.
Gerda, pacing up and down in anguish. At desk.
Dear, oh dear.
We must terrify him, lie to him, somehow.
I know.
Both down.
dreadful story about father. Follow my lead and try not to overdo it.
The door rattles.
All right, look out.
Enter Hiram, very sure of himself. He sees the children and gasps. Hiram, right.
Good God.
Good afternoon.
How do you do?
But, see here, You're not.
Looking round, goes across to between them.
I'm afraid we are...
Hiram, recovering himself.
I guess you're much, much older than I expected.
Are we?
Your mother's a great little woman.
Isn't she?
Hiram, weakly.
Yes, she sure is.
There is a pause.
She told you that we were going to be married?
Yes.
Hiram looks from one to the other.
Oh.
Well, what do you say to it?
Close the door, Sholto.
Sholto obeys in silence. Hiram begins to fidget.
See here, you know,
Crosses right after Sholto. Gerda stops him.
It's all right, Mr. Mother never told us your name.
Walken. Hiram J. Walken.
Thank you. I should like to tell you, Mr. Walken, how delighted we are that this has happened.
She smiles sadly.
Delighted? I thought you seemed a bit depressed about it.
We have almost prayed for this moment, haven't we, Sholto?
Yes, almost.
Our mother.
God help her!
Our mother. We've got to tell you this, Mr. Walken.
See here. Are you two trying to put something over on me?
We should never do that, even if we knew what it meant.
You must listen attentively to what we have to say. It's very upsetting, but somehow I feel that you have strength of mind and that I can trust you.
We can both trust you.
Sholto and I have felt it our duty to always tell the real truth to all the people who have wanted to marry our mother. But, thank heaven, something tells me that you won't be like the others and run away.
What are you getting at?
Mother told you that she divorced father?
She did.
Well, it's not true.
Not true? But why? What do you mean?
Our father.
Her voice breaks.
Our father was put into a lunatic asylum 8 years ago.
What?
Drops in settee, right center.
Mother pretends she divorced him. She carried her head high in spite of all the shame and horror she had to endure. Gallant, gallant little woman.
Lunatic asylum? But I...
Gerda sits on settee. Gently.
Now, Mr. Walken, why should we try to tell lies to you?
Sholto sits.
You will be able to take care of Mother. You will be able to comfort her when she has these uncontrollable fits of depression, which we have endured willingly but for so long.
Hiram, still distrustful.
But it's incredible. I mean to say...
Lots of frightful things that happen are incredible.
Father used to be so gay, so merry, and now...
He turns away.
Now...
She turns away.
Now, he eats the buttons off padded chairs.
Hiram looks at Sholto.
Sholto, pull yourself together. There's no need to harrow poor Mr. Walken with these depressing details. He will have enough to bear, God knows.
The most fearful thing of all is that it has affected Mother.
How do you mean?
Gerda, frowning at Sholto.
Not much, of course. Just the teeniest little bit. She just says rather odd things now and then. You've probably noticed?
You mean she's a bit dippy?
Mr. Walken, you are a frank, outspoken man, I know, but not dippy.
Well then, mentally deranged?
Rises, crosses left center. Gerda, on settee.
No, not quite. We had to tell you this. We had to. Don't you understand? We love our mother. We want her to have help and protection. We're so desperately tired. You could take her, and we should have no more of this awful sense of responsibility. You're not the sort of man to be bound down by convention, and no one need ever know you were a bigamist.
Rises, working to left to Hiram.
It breaks our hearts sometimes to hear Mother talk of Father, quite happily and brightly, as though nothing were wrong with him. Occasionally, I believe she almost succeeds in convincing herself. We went to England, hoping against hope that he would be better. But no, he was just the same.
There were some new chairs. That's all.
Hiram looks at her. Hiram drops down.
Where is this asylum?
Just near Guildford. Such pretty surroundings.
And your father's there now?
Yes, Mr. Walken.
Sholto, glancing at his wristwatch.
He's probably just having his tea. Unbreakable crockery, of course.
He cried dreadfully when we left him, didn't he, Sholto?
Dreadfully. He said, "Don't go, don't go." It was most harrowing.
I can hardly bear to think of it.
And you say there's no chance of his getting well?
Enter George, window right, back.
None.
Dabs her eyes.
Oh, Mr. Walken.
Sholto, with the calmness of despair.
None. I doubt if we shall ever see him again.
George starts on seeing Hiram.
Oh, Sholto, Gerda, have you...
Sholto crosses to George upright, with great presence of mind.
Why, it's Mr. Peasmarch!
Gerda crosses to George upright, shaking him warmly by the hand.
So it is! After all this long time.
We are so glad to see you. How's Mr. Peasmarch?
Sholto, you forget. Mrs. Peasmarsh was burnt to death last Tuesday week.
Oh, I'm so frightfully sorry. You must try not to think about it. Let me introduce you to Mr. Walken, Mr. Peasmarch.
Hiram, advancing.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Peasmarsh.
George crosses to left, dazed.
How do you do? I'm afraid I don't quite understand.
Gerda, nudging him.
We'll explain later.
Hiram, left, suspiciously.
Explain what later?
Gerda, left center, hurriedly.
About you being here, Mr. Walken. Mr. Peasmarsh is naturally surprised.
In heaven's name, why?
Gerda, desperately.
Because of Mother's vow. Didn't we tell you about Mother's vow?
You did not?
Well, perhaps you'd better explain, Sholto, while I talk to Mr. Peasmarsh.
I don't want any more explained to me.
Sholto crosses to left, quickly.
Oh, but you must. You see, it was like this. When Mr. Peasmarch was a little boy, he and Mother used to play together. And one day, when they were playing at... What were they playing at, Gerda?
Gerda crosses to left center, promptly.
Dances of all nations.
Hiram, left. George crosses right.
And Mother tripped over the stars and stripes and hurt herself very much. So she made a vow never to let an American cross her threshold.
George, right center, unexpectedly.
I should have thought she was too young to have a threshold.
Please don't interrupt, Mr. Peasmarch. We're trying to make things clear to Mr. Walken.
Clear? Good God!
Shh. Now, will you listen?
No, I will not listen!
Crosses to center.
You've both been joshing me all along, and I've had about enough of it.
But Mr. Walken...
Don't lie to me anymore. Do you think I'm half-witted? Do you imagine that I can't see you're trying to get rid of me? If you don't want me to marry your mother, why the hell couldn't you say so?
What?
There now. You've upset Mr. Peasmarsh.
My name is not Peasmarch.
Gerda and Sholto go up to George and surround him. Enter Maria. She pauses for a moment, looks from George to the photograph on desk, then back again. Then, with a shrill cry of recognition, she rushes at him and, clasping his hands, covers them with kisses. Hiram moves to left.
Il padrone! Il padrone! Il padrone! Sia tornato! Allo stagnato stasera! Madonna mia adesso tutto starà benissimo! Porta la felicità alla signora! Oh, signor! Signor! Che miracolo! Dio mio!
Stai zitta, Maria! Stai zitta!
Everybody proceeds to talk at the top of their voices. The noise is deafening.
Please, Mr. Walken, don't be cross. Come back in about an hour and we'll explain everything properly, and you'll understand perfectly why we've been behaving like this.
I should very much like to know what you just meant now, sir, when you said, I come here and a perfect stranger suddenly announces that he is intending to marry my wife.
It's all quite simple. If you only listen to reason, our mother's a most peculiar woman, and she has always...
I guess you're all trying to put something over on me, and I should like you to know that I'm not the sort of man to be joshed uphill and down dale by a set of...
Dio grazie, Dio grazie, Dio grazie.
Enter Jennifer.
I never heard such a noise. What are you all shouting about? George!
Jennifer!
That's done it.
This is infamous.
I'm beginning to see things a bit more clearly now.
Goethe and Sholto to Hiram together.
If you'll only let us explain.
God forbid.
George, oblivious of all but Jennifer.
Jennifer, I've come back.
That would be obvious to the meanest intelligence. Mr. Walkin.
Hiram crosses to right center, with biting sarcasm.
I guess it isn't necessary to try to explain anything more to me. I know all. Sholto and Gerda have made it perfectly clear. I'm sorry that your husband eats chairs in an asylum, and I'm sorry that you played with Mr. Peasmarsh when he was a boy and tripped over the stars and stripes. It must have been most painful. I'm also sorry that you hadn't the moral courage to tell me I was unwelcome, and that you had to employ your dear children to do it for you.
Crosses up, gets hat.
My poor man, you're talking nonsense.
Shh! Be gentle, Mother. Mr. Walkin is not quite as other men.
He had a bad fall when he was a child, and...
Hiram comes down center. Hiram, struggling manfully to control his rage.
Mrs. Brent, I release you unconditionally from your engagement to me. On closer acquaintance, I find I couldn't altogether cope with your...
He looks venomously at Sholto and Gerda.
Your atmosphere. I am going straight back to Chicago.
Up to window left. Jennifer, following up to window, distressed.
Won't you have some tea before you go?
Hiram, still fighting for politeness, but shouting.
No! Thank you very much. No!
He stamps off onto the terrace.
It's perfectly disgraceful of you to upset that poor man like that. You've placed me in an appalling position, and I refuse to speak a word to any of you.
She makes a dive for the door, but Gerda and Sholto bar the way. The three sit on settee.
Now, Mummy, do sit down and keep calm. Daddy's awfully in love with you and has been all the time, and he's come over with us to make a formal proposal.
George moves left.
Don't go and spoil everything by being obstinate.
Think how wonderful it will be. All together again? He is such a darling.
Enter Maria. Maria comes down excitedly.
Yes, yes, all together. That is good.
In Italian.
The saints will preserve us and keep us rich to the end of our lives.
Sholto, in Italian.
Go away now, Maria. We'll come and talk to you in the kitchen presently.
Very good, signor.
She goes out, laughing happily. Jennifer, on settee, almost in tears.
I shall never forgive either of you for this.
Jennifer.
Left.
How dare you spring on me without any warning, like a rattlesnake?
They made me come.
Jennifer, quickly.
Then you didn't want to?
George, center.
You know I did.
Jennifer, crossly.
Well, all I can say is, it's very inconsiderate.
It's nothing of the sort. It's a pleasant surprise.
Jennifer rises.
Pleasant? Huh. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Gerda, softly to Sholto.
It's all right. They're going to have a row. Come on.
They commence to go up to back, quietly. George, quite cross.
Why should I be ashamed, just because I love you still?
Where's Cicely?
Gerda and Sholto go out, window left.
Damn Cicely.
I consider that remark in very bad taste. I suppose when you first married Cicely, you used to damn Jennifer all day long.
George, left center.
Cicely's left me for good and all. I shall never see her again.
Jennifer, right center.
Have you any aspirin on you?
No, I'm so sorry.
I'm sure I shall have a headache in a minute. To have you suddenly reappearing like this is enough to unman any woman.
Don't trifle with me. Don't be flippant. This is our first meeting after 15 years. Let's treat it in the proper spirit.
If only you'd given me a little warning, I could have worked myself up into the right atmosphere without the least trouble. I should have put a lamp in the window.
George, appealingly.
Jennifer.
As it is, I'm utterly taken by surprise.
Let's wait to discuss this until later, when the shock has worn off a bit.
Are you really so eager, then?
George crosses to Jennifer.
I want to come back here to you and the children more than anything in the world, Jennifer.
He catches her hand.
Don't be tiresome.
Really, you are amazing. After living 14 years with another woman, you drop out of a cloudless sky and call me tiresome.
Well, you are. Thoroughly.
Perhaps I am, rather.
Sits on settee.
Jennifer, in a few months all the divorce business will be settled. And we're both getting on, you know. We shan't be as temperamental as we used to be.
Nonsense. I shall always be temperamental. That's just it. You jump at conclusions so. As a matter of fact, I'm ever so much worse than I was, having been left alone to do as I like.
George sits.
I'm not afraid.
If I agree to marry you again, I want you to understand that it will be solely on account of Sholto and Gerda.
Very well.
And I should like to arrange things on a more or less business basis. We must make a list of the subjects that we cannot discuss calmly.
Counting on her fingers.
Religion, George Moore, democracy, my novels.
I won't criticize a word of your novels, if you don't want me to.
I don't mind your criticisms, George, as long as they're sensible and enthusiastic.
Anything more?
Certainly. You mustn't dominate me. I hate being dominated.
I never did.
And you must never try to make me eat things I don't like. You always used to.
I didn't.
Yes, you did. One of our fiercest quarrels started with an apple pudding.
You were so fatty.
Never mind. I like being fatty.
Rises, crosses to center.
All right.
Promise me that you won't persuade me to live in England for good.
I promise.
Rises to center.
And above all things, you must never become reminiscent about Sicily.
You will want to talk about Sicily more than I shall.
Oh, no, I shan't.
Won't you say yes or no now?
There you go, dominating me.
Sits.
Will you answer one question?
That depends. What is it?
Do you care for me at all, any more?
I suppose I do, really. But still, that doesn't settle things by any means. I had to crush down so much unhappiness 15 years ago that... Do you know, I believe I crushed all my capacity for happiness with it also. The fact of our caring for one another didn't prevent our quarrelling before.
We're older now.
I know, there's no need to go harping on it.
You're much too sensible to mind growing old.
Am I? I wonder.
I know. Once we're together again, it won't matter a bit. There's such a lot of happiness waiting for us just round the corner, if only we're careful.
Perhaps.
George, going towards her.
Jennifer, you are a darling.
Jennifer rises, warding him off.
George, it's too late. That poor American. I've given my word.
He released you from it.
To center.
Only because he was cross. I can't let him go all the way back to Chicago by himself.
He'll have to. He doesn't love you as much as I do.
More, I'm afraid. You see, not having been married to me before, he doesn't know of my disadvantages.
I'm sorry, but it'll have to do without you.
George, how can you be so selfish?
I love you.
So does he, and you're calmly suggesting that I should break his heart.
Yes.
No, George. On second thoughts, I'm afraid.
Sits at desk.
Stop. Don't go on any longer. I won't have it. I know you and I can see through you. You determined in your own mind to have me back the very first moment you saw me. And you're prevaricating and arguing just to keep me on the rack. This is one of the most delightful moments in your life, and you're reveling in it at the cost of my peace of mind. You love me. It's no use pretending you don't, because every nerve and instinct I possess is screaming that you do. You do! You only tolerated the thought of that wretched American at all on account of the children. You love me. You love me. You've wanted me all these years as much as I've wanted you. The sight of you has completely annihilated the time we've been parted. The only thing in the world that matters is youth, and I've got it back again. I'm 21 and I want to laugh and shout and tear the house down. Come and kiss me.
Jennifer, going to him.
George, you haven't altered a bit.
Curtain. End of Act 3. End of The Young Idea, a comedy in 3 acts by Noel Coward.